after All-Star talk, yes, I feel like we've avoided your Celtics all season. I reckon that's probably by design more than anything. But you are the Celtics, man. They are one of the biggest franchises in the league. So it's only right that you kind of give us your expert look at how they've been doing. So you're coming off a loss against the Lakers. As much as they tried to give that to you at the end there, how are you doing this season, generally speaking?
You know what? I just want to make a point because a couple people have even asked on the Twitter, like, yo, when are you going to talk about the Celtics? And I'm like, if I have free reign, if the leash is not kept tight, yeah, this will become a Celtics podcast. It will be Celtics and friends, yeah. So I'm trying to not be Bill Simmons about it and just hijack.
Admirable. Yeah, trying to start talking about the 1986 Celtics and Kevin McHale and why Larry Bird was the best of all time.
I'll just bring up Larry Bird for everything. I'll bring up Paul Pierce. You'll be talking about all-time greats, and I'll just bring up Paul Pierce because, of course. It's and part of the reason as well is I think the Celtics are in a very, very strange window at the moment, and that's kind of the reason I haven't even analysed them too tough on the podcast, is because I don't think Danny Ainge really knows what to do with the Celtics at the moment. I don't think Brad Stevens really knows what to do with the Celtics at the moment. We've got a disproportionate amount of young-ish bench players who, some of them, if I'm honest, are barely NBA players. Our bench sucks, but some of them are young enough that they clearly want to give it a bit of time before making any moves. The thing that's hanging over our head at the moment is, look, last year our big strength was wing depth, and we had Hayward, Brown, Tatum. It was very, very easy to have two of them on the floor at any given time. I don't think anyone had sort of two-way wing depth anywhere close in terms of quality. And, you know, if it wasn't Hayward mid-range game getting you, it was Brown driving to the basket, it was Tatum step back threes. Like it was dangerous. And Kemba Walker was Kemba Walker, at least for the first part of that season. All of a sudden, Kemba's got a knee issue and misses half of the season and is out of rhythm, and Hayward goes to Charlotte, and we are thin, like paper thin. The whole thing about the Hayward loss was, how are you going to replace his output? There's all these things about, we could have got Miles Turner. Indiana were trying to shop Miles Turner and give him away, plus a Doug McDermott or a Jeremy Lamb or something like that. It wasn't really clear who came with him. And we opted for a trade exception, the traded player exception, which people have kind of asked on the Twitter as well what exactly that means. Basically, it's like ghost cap space. We did a sign and trade with Hayward where we gave 2 second-rounders after signing him to Charlotte, and in return, we got an exception from the league that is kind of like a whole of cap space worth the first year of his deal, $28.5 million, that we can basically absorb a player into, similar to what Golden State did with Kelly Oubre this past year, where they just sort of threw off a few picks for him, and he came in and he didn't put them over the cap where they couldn't otherwise go of it. So it's like ghost cap space that you can kind of keep alive. So that's put this undue pressure on the roster of, rather than you get a nice player in a trade, we've got this imaginary trade exception that every fan is deciding what it needs to be. And it's very, very clear when you look at us that we're missing probably 2 pieces, 3 pieces, let alone one big piece. So yeah, that's kind of where we're at. Like it was seen as a transitional year, and I think everyone was kind of cool with that, really, until Jaylen Brown did what Jaylen Brown did. And now it looks like we have 2 legitimate contending players. We have 2 players that are averaging 27 points a night.
I've got a question for you, yes. Tatum's always seen as like the better talent, etc., etc. With the way the way Jalen's continued to improve since he's gotten into the league. It was the 3rd pick, wasn't he? And there's a lot of question marks. And then
so they were both 3rd picks, but there was very different attitudes to them. Like I think we famously traded down from number 1 to get Tatum, and even Tatum, to be fair, is probably slightly exceeding what is. If you go look at his sort of draft sort of reports and stuff, saw him as a very smooth scorer and very naturally talented guy, but they weren't sure if he had the burst and athleticism to really be elite. And then Jaylen Brown was the other way. He was like, physically, he was fantastic, but the handle wasn't there. The shooting out from outside wasn't there. He had people saying that he was too smart in his draft interviews and stuff like that because he was so they were worried he'd do too much stuff other than basketball. Like
Yeah.
he wasn't. Yeah, it's a weird one.
Yeah, and then he got the big contract, and everyone was like, "Ooh, are they sure they want to tie themselves in?"
And now you look at that contract,
it's great
compared to the draft class, he's on like 8 million, 6 million less a year than Jamal Murray, 6-7 million less a year than Brandon Ingram. I'm taking him over Jamal Murray just for the two-way stuff and the consistency of this year. And Brandon Ingram, I think there's a conversation, a real conversation, which should be interesting. So yeah, look, we've got these two guys who they've gone in 18 months with the whole Kyrie Hayward kind of passing of the team over. They've gone in 18 months, and this is what renders the Kemba signing difficult. They've gone in 18 months from promising to, oh shit, actually, if these could have taken us to an NBA Finals if Hayward was fit. These have just gone last night and outscored AD and LeBron. So we talk about last night's game against the Lakers. Obviously, we lost by a point. All jokes aside, I was more enthused by that than I was disheartened. Firstly, we fucking scored 4 of their points, which I've never seen happen twice in a game, by the way, tipping in the ball into our own hoop twice.
Was that second time? Did it count as a 2 or 3?
A 2.
Okay, just checking.
Yeah. So 4 of their points, and then but on a free, Kemba went to try and save one from going out of bounds, threw it straight to AD, threw it to LeBron for a 3. So we really shot ourselves in the kneecap a little bit last night. And there was a goal 10 which was missed, and will probably come on a 2-minute report. Marcus Smart is looking like isn't as badly injured as first thought, thankfully, but he was gone in the fourth quarter, which, like talking about our bench, is not great. Our bench was outscored 35-15 last night by the Lakers bench. Despite all that, our 2 outscored their 2 on similar minutes and usage, and we lost the game by a point. And Jaylen Brown missed 2 free throws in the fourth. So we've just gone toe-to-toe with the champions elect, and everyone's saying they're going to repeat and whatever, and we're not nearly at full strength. So straight away now, it's gone from potential and promise, where people are now saying Jaylen Brown in particular, because that was the question mark, and Tatum are so good as scorers and as two-way players and as help defenders, and Jaylen Brown picks up big assignments defensively. Why can't you contend now? So it's a sticky one. It's a funny one. And then NBA, bro, these windows don't... Everyone's like, oh, we've got them 10 years. We don't have them 10 years. We've got Jaylen Brown for 4, and we've got Tatum for 4 or 5. That's what you have. That's what they're signed for. Everything after that is up in the air because it's the NBA, and this is Rich Paul's world, and we all just live in it, right? So everything's up in the air. So I don't think we can waste the year not contending now with the level they're at.
So what are you?
I think Brown is having a hell of a season. You know, to go from 20 points per game last year to 27 this year. Obviously, Tatum has missed a substantial amount of time, so it's given Brown the free range to kind of just take that team by the horns and lead it. I still think Tatum is the number 1 Batman guy on that team, but I think it's incredibly close.
That's why
I think it's. I'm going to get into it. I think it's incredibly close, and I don't actually think. I know you'll get into it in good detail in a second, but bro, it gets closer by the game. Like, yeah.
But I have no idea who I want the ball in the hands of now.
Well,
I think Tatum with those last 2 buckets last night sort of reaffirmed it, but it's getting closer every game.
Well, I think, it doesn't have to be a traditional, okay, I am Batman, you're Robin type of guy. Like, you can have the 2 of them as 1A, 1B and interchange. Like, they can coexist. It doesn't have to be either or. I do think down the stretch, the Celtics go to Tatum more than they go to Brown. We saw him hit the game winner versus the Bucks early in the season. He hit the one versus the Pistons. And then we saw him last night versus the Lakers hit those 2 shots to kind of pull the game closer. I do think that Tatum creates his own shot slightly better than Brown, but it's literally splitting hairs. I think if anything, Tatum just looks smoother when he does it. Brown can create his shot. Brown can create his shot just fine.
With the create, do you know what? Tell me what you think it is, because this is where I kind of, just from what you've seen as well, what you think. The level of creating their own shot and crunch time is small. I think Tatum is more likely to... Tatum from like that side step 3 is ridiculous. Like, is really efficient with it. But I think Tatum is more likely to just pull off the more difficult shot. Like that one against the Lakers where he's come inside onto his left and kind of pulled a floater with the right and he's
across
just
his body. Yeah,
that's a really difficult shot to execute. but I feel like Brown just has a more secure handle. I think he can get lower with the ball when he gets into the paint. He can protect it a bit better. I think he can take contact a little bit better and still finish. I think he's got better hang time around the rim. So I think like you said, they're different in the qualities. It's what kind of shot you want from them. Would you agree with that, or would you say it's something else?
I feel like because Tatum's bigger as well, Brown is 6'6", Tatum is 6'8". I feel like Tatum as well, he's very smart in his shots. He doesn't take very many bad shots, especially when the game is on the line. Like you saw last night versus the Lakers, Caruso's guarding the inbounds. He immediately inbounds the ball and just goes straight down to the post. You know, the game is on the line. There's a couple of minutes left in the fourth quarter. He's taking it straight to the basket for an and one layup and then not settling for three and getting to the middle for that floater. So I really think it's just either or. You know, if you want to put the ball in Brown's hands, you're not going to regret it. If you want to put it in Tatum's hand, you're not going to regret it either. What I do think...
Sorry, Greg.
What I do think...
giving me Paul George, Kawhi Leonard sort of vibes as a duo. And yeah, it's just putting the right pieces around him, to be honest with you.
What I was going to say for the Celtics is that, you know, you look at them as a team and the teams they're going to be competing with. So with the Nets, for example, you got Harden and KD. Are they a better duo than Brown and Tatum? Yes. You look at the Clippers, they got George and Kawhi. Are they a better duo talent-wise? Yes. Then you look at the other teams and the bigs they have, and I think this is where the Celtics kind of struggle because they don't have anyone to guard Embiid down low. We saw Embiid give them work in back-to-back games. Come playoff time, they're going to have to deal with Embiid. If they don't deal with Embiid, they're going to have to deal with Sabonis, who, you know, isn't as good as Embiid, but is still having a great year. And, you know, he's a 20-10 guy. If the Celtics and Pacers meet in the playoffs, I would pick the Celtics, but I do think that series goes 6 or 7. And then,
I think what we've shown previously, I think you're right in that the Pacers are stronger than they have been and would be a much more of a test. What we do seem to be good at, despite our size, is like Embiid, we swept last year. Granted, Simmons wasn't there and Embiid wasn't in the condition that you want him to be all the time. But I think we are quite good at letting a guy get his points, but covering off the other threats as well as possible in a playoff series. I think we're better in playoff situations than we are regular season a lot of the time, because I think Brad Stevens, I'll go both ways on Brad Stevens, but I think he is good at scheming for opponents and reacting in between games. Not within games, maybe good enough, but I think he's really good between games. So I think
you guys just need the personnel.
Yeah,
because like last night you saw Brown guarding AD.
Tristan Thompson was meant to be this guy. Tristan Thompson is done. Tristan Thompson is
Prince
done.
I mean, you guys can't go into the playoffs with Tatum and Brown at 6'6" and 6'8" guarding, you know, essentially 6'10" to 7-foot guys in the post. Like AD is just rising over all of your defenders and shooting. If you guys meet them in the finals, you know, if the Celtics get there, and in the East you've got Embiid and Sabonis to deal with, and then when you don't have to deal with the big, I feel like your perimeter duo, although good, and although the Celtics are a good perimeter defensive team, and you add in Smart to that duo, like they're not as talented as the other elite guys in the league in their partnerships. So it's not that they're not bad, they're not average, they're better than average, they're good, but they're not great compared to the other talents of the league.
I think the big thing as well is you compare, like, to even be compared to Durant and Harden and Kawhi and Paul George, and this is where people do get carried away with the we've got them for 10 years thing. Kawhi and Paul George 30-31, Harden and Durant 31-32, Tatum and Brown 22-24, and the level is just there. Like they've won playoff series now over the last
Oh, he's dropped off.
Wow, the tension there, and we'll wait for him to hop back on, and we'll just pick up where he left off.
But on his point about the age, I do feel like
they've won playoff series that they probably weren't ready for really as a rookie and a sophomore in 2018. Last year they were taking us without Hayward against Toronto, taking us through against Toronto with Hayward missed that whole series. So they're kind of being thrust into this responsibility and are delivering on it. And I think with Brown as well in particular, and this is what kind of gets people so excited about him. Brown last year, there were times he was relegated to a spot-up guy and because you had to fit in Kemba and Hayward and everything like that. Brown now, with no real offseason seemingly to improve, is handling in the pick and roll, is playmaking, is driving into the rim and kicking it out, knows where the shooters are. He's making small, smart little passes into the restricted area when he's crowded out. Like the floater and the mid range is getting better every year. He's more reliable from free. His free throws are better now. Like he's just better every year, and it's not just better. It's better with higher usage and harder things to do. So yeah, like they just, and I can't. The Kawhi George point is an interesting one because I can't think of too many teams, Mario, that are wing based. Like everyone seems to either have a point guard or a big man as one of their two. We've got Greg the encyclopedia here, so I'm sure he'll be able to throw me one any minute. But it's an interesting one to have to build around because the pieces have to be right. Like we need a guard that can defend that maybe isn't a shoot first guy like Kemba because now it's taken away from them a little bit, you know. And then, yeah, okay, we maybe want a big, but then you don't want to be wasting your time with the ball in the post too often when you've got these two efficient all-rounders. So I don't know what we're going to do with this trade exception, but that bench is disgusting. It makes me sick. So something needs to happen. And I think people are clamoring for like an Aaron Gordon or a Harrison Barnes just to have another wing or something. But I don't know. I hope the front office have a better idea than I do.
Cool. Yeah, thanks for that. Last thing I want to ask you about the Celtics, succinct as you can. I've been hearing a lot about this rookie, Pritchard. I know he's old for rookies, 22, 23?
Yeah.
What are your
he's
early...
older than Tatum.
What are your early thoughts on him?
He plays hard.
He's good, man. All the draft nerds said he was shit. All the draft nerds were like, "No, we had him at 60 on our big board and that." But he's close. Like he gets in, does the job. He's already better than Jeff Teague, so that's nice for him. It's just older rookies, isn't it? You don't really know the ceiling, but he can shoot. He doesn't waste his shots. He's quick. He can finish against much bigger guys. His handling's decent. He at least competes on defense, even if he's not too big. Because Danny Ainge is obsessed with guards that are shorter than me. I don't know why, but no, he's good. He's good. I don't know what the ceiling is, but like I will play him as our second choice point guard happily.